All right, let's talk about what is, without a doubt, one of the most advanced, most impressive, and frankly rarest firearms of the entire Second World War. This is the FG-42. And believe me, this was not just another rifle. It was a truly revolutionary piece of engineering that was literally born from the ashes of a battlefield disaster. So just for a second, put yourself in the shoes of a German military planner early in World War II. You've got this elite force of paratroopers, the Fallschirmjäger, but you have a huge life or death question to answer. How do you get these guys into a fight with the firepower they need from the very moment their boots hit the ground?
And believe it or not, this was the answer they came up with. I know, it sounds completely insane, but in the early days, German paratroopers jumped with only their sidearms. All their important gear, their rifles, their machine guns, was dropped in these heavy, separate canisters. The idea was simple, right? You land, you find your canister, and then you get to work.
Well, as you can probably guess, what works out on paper often fails spectacularly in the real world. And this deeply flawed plan led directly to an absolute nightmare scenario that forced a complete top-to-bottom rethink of how they armed their paratroopers. And Crete is where it all went catastrophically wrong. During that incredibly costly invasion in 1941, paratroopers were landing under intense fire, scattered all over the place, often nowhere near their weapons. So you have these elite soldiers fighting for their lives against heavily armed defenders with just pistols and grenades. The casualty rate was just staggering, and it became brutally obvious that something had to change, and it had to change fast. So, the German Air Force, the Luftwaffe, who were in command of the paratroopers, were absolutely furious. They actually went around the Army's normal weapons development process and demanded a single weapon that could fix this whole mess once and for all. What they wanted? Well, they wanted the impossible. And that demand pretty much boiled down to this. It came straight from the top, from Luftwaffe Chief Hermann Goering himself. He wanted a new rifle for his guys, but the requirements he laid out were almost a paradox. He was essentially asking for one gun that could do the job of 3 different weapons. I mean, just look at this list. They wanted a rifle that was as light and compact as the standard issue bolt-action carbine. Okay, but it also needed to be a semi-automatic rifle for accurate fire and a light machine gun for laying down suppressive fire. Oh, and to top it all off, it had to fire the big, powerful, full-size 8mm Mauser rifle cartridge. It was a wish list that pretty much seemed to defy the laws of physics. But an engineer named Louis Stang over at the Rheinmetall Company came up with an unbelievably clever design that actually managed to check all those impossible boxes. The result was the Fallschirmjägergewehr 42. Which just means Paratrooper Rifle 42, or as we know it, the FG-42. Okay, so now we get to the absolute heart of the FG-42's genius. This was its secret weapon. See, to be both a tack-driving rifle and a controllable machine gun, you have to solve 2 problems that are working against each other. The solution was this incredibly innovative dual-mode bolt. And this shows you exactly how it worked. When you had it set to semi-auto, it fired from a closed bolt. That means the bolt is already forward when you squeeze the trigger, which is absolutely crucial for an accurate first shot. But you flip that selector switch to full auto, and it instantly changes to firing from an open bolt, where the bolt stays locked to the rear until you fire. This allows air to flow through the hot barrel and chamber, which prevents the gun from overheating and cooking off rounds. It was truly the best of both worlds, all in one firearm. Another really smart design choice was the side-mounted magazine. By sticking the magazine out to the left, the designers could move the pistol grip and the whole trigger group further forward. Now, why does that matter? Because it saved precious inches, making the entire weapon shorter and way less clumsy for a paratrooper trying to jump out of a plane, all without having to shorten the barrel and sacrifice velocity. So you might be asking, how on earth do you make a lightweight rifle firing a full-power battle rifle cartridge controllable on full auto? Well, the answer was this: a massive spring buffer system built right into the stock. When the gun fired, the entire action, the barrel, the receiver, the whole shebang, recoiled backward into this buffer, soaking up a huge amount of that kick before it ever got to the soldier's shoulder. It was a system that made the uncontrollable. So the design was pure genius, no question. But a brilliant design on paper is one thing. Actually trying to mass produce thousands of them during the chaos of a losing war, that's a whole other ballgame. And this is where that brilliance was about to run headfirst into cold, hard reality. The biggest problem was just how it was made. The receiver, which is the heart of the rifle, was machined out of a massive, solid block of high-quality nickel steel. That process was incredibly slow and expensive, and it used up a precious alloy that Germany was desperately running out of. It was a masterpiece of a gun, but it was a masterpiece they simply couldn't afford to make. So just how many actually got made? The number is kind of stunning. Across all the different models and variations, only about 7,500 FG-42s were ever produced. Now, to put that into perspective, Germany made over 10 million of their standard Kar 98K rifle. The FG-42 was barely even a drop in the ocean. And if we narrow that down even further to the early model, the one that really stuck to that original beautiful design, the numbers get even smaller. Only about 2,000 of this first pattern were ever made by the Krieghoff Company. Just 2,000. And this is where the rarity just goes off the charts. Of those 2,000 early models that were made, it's estimated that today, only about 15, just 15, are legally registered and in private hands in the entire United States. That makes it one of the absolute rarest and most desirable military firearms on the planet. You know, even during its very short and limited production run, they were still learning and making changes. For instance, the early guns had this stamped trigger guard that was part of the pistol grip assembly. Well, soldiers in the field quickly complained that it was way too small to use if you were wearing thick winter gloves. So later models switched to a larger separate trigger guard that was riveted on. It's a small detail, but it shows they were trying to adapt on the fly. So even though it was way too late and far too complex to change the outcome of the war, the story of the FG-42 doesn't just end in 1945. Its brilliant engineering concepts ended up having a profound, lasting impact on firearms design that we can still see today. After the war, Allied weapons designers were all over captured German technology, taking everything apart to see how it worked. And that incredibly clever dual-mode operating system of the FG-42, it definitely did not go unnoticed. They realized its potential went way beyond just a special rifle for paratroopers. And this, right here, is the truly mind-blowing part of its legacy. The internal mechanism, that rotating bolts and gas piston system, was almost directly copied and adapted by American engineers. It became the heart and soul of the iconic M60 machine gun, which was the U.S. military's go-to machine gun for decades. The DNA of this German wonder rifle lived on in one of the most famous American weapons ever made. So all of this leaves us with a really fascinating question to think about. Was the FG-42 just a brilliant failure in the end? Too complex, too expensive, and too late to make any real difference? Or, with its unique blend of rifle and machine gun features in such a compact package, was it actually the blueprint for the modern battle rifle? The answer, a lot like the rifle itself, is pretty complicated.